Have you ever wondered, are mass shooters crazy? Are they mentally ill? Are they severely mentally ill? Are they lunatics? What is it about mass shooters that make them do what they do? If you want to learn more about that, I am Mr. E. This is MysterE's Mysteries, and we are here to talk about all things mysterious in the world of psychology. The big question comes, and we could go over this through and through, over and over. What causes mass shooters to do what they do? When we focus on the word cause, we have to be very careful. Because with cause and effect, we're saying that one thing is causing the other to happen. So, my example today is on mass shooters. With mass shooting and school shootings, obviously big time on the rise. Between 1900 and 1970, there was one mass shooting for every 1 billion people each year. Okay. From 1970 to 2019, there's 28 mass shootings per billion people. 7 billion people on the planet. You do the math. There's a lot more mass shootings. So the question is, what's causing this? I'm not here to tell you what causes it. I'm here to tell you what the difference is between causing and being connected. So there are so many people that preach that mental illness leads to mass shooters doing what they do. I'm here to dispel that rumor. I'm here to dispel those facts or those faux facts. Here's the situation. They have done studies on mass shooters, and this is what they found out. Of all mass shooters, only 4 to 8% suffer from a severe mental illness. A severe mental illness would be either something like schizophrenia or severe bipolar disorder, like a schizoaffective disorder. So some sort of psychotic break where they can't tell what's real from what's unreal. So only 4 to 8% of all mass shootings are done by somebody with a severe mental disorder. If we take the less severe mental disorders, what we're looking at is we're looking at a 25% grouping of mass shooters that struggle with moderate mental illness. Okay. So I'll just say that one more time. So of all the mass shooters, 25% suffer from a moderate mental illness. That would be something like depression, anxiety disorders, PTSD, OCD, postpartum depression, things like that. So just the moderate mental illnesses, still mental illnesses. They still impact people's ability to live and thrive, but only 25%. And you might say, and there's some people that claim that it's up to 33%, but we'll stick with about 25% of all mass shooters suffer from a moderate mental illness. That mirrors the general population. The general population is approximately 25% of us have suffered or do suffer from a moderate mental illness. So the other piece that we need to understand is that just because somebody suffers from a mental illness, it doesn't mean the mental illness caused that person to commit the heinous act. So what you have to do is you have to look at other connections. In the world of science and psychology, we talk about correlations. So with a correlation, if I were to just give you kind of a little piece of what is a correlation is two factors that rise together, fall together, or one rises and one falls. For example, self-esteem rises, depression scores fall. Okay. Higher the self-esteem, less likely to be depressed. Those two are correlated. Okay. The higher the ACT score, the higher the college GPA. those two are correlated. They move together. They're two factors that move together. But we can't say that one causes the other without doing experimentation. And so when we talk about mass shooters and the mass shooting phenomenon, we have to look at, okay, so what are the strong correlations? So we can break it down into two groups of mass shooters. We can talk about the school shooters, and then we can talk about just the other mass shootings that occur. Almost all are done by males. Okay. With mass shooting, a majority of mass shooters are males in their middle age. And then the majority of school shooters are males. And there are three factors that are common in all mass shooters. Just because they're common, it doesn't mean they cause this, but they're common. Number one, the majority of mass shooters have suffered some childhood trauma. Not all, but the majority have suffered some childhood trauma. Number two, they're triggered by a major stressor: loss of a job, loss of financial security, a breakup, a hopelessness or helplessness, extreme isolation. And let's just talk very briefly about this extreme isolation as a stressor. 90% of school shooters have been defined as being ostracized, or by ostracizing themselves from society, meaning that they have either been pushed out or they pulled themselves out of society and have either done self-isolation or have become isolated from others. So we have the childhood trauma, we have a major stressor life event. The third one in almost all is this radicalization online, where they get in these chat groups where people talk about mass shootings, they glorify mass shootings, et cetera, et cetera. So the third step is this radicalization. And then the fourth step is the availability of the guns. So those are our four steps in commonalities between mass shooters. Again, I'm not saying what is causing these mass shooters, but the strongest correlation is this ostracization, is this isolation, whether it's self-isolation, like they just decided to isolate themselves, or whether they were kind of ostracized by society for various reasons. But that is the most powerful correlation. Mental illness is not correlated with school shootings. Not when you only have 20%, 25% of mass shooters suffering from a moderate mental illness, when that really mirrors the general population, and with the inability really to even come close to connecting the mental illness as being the cause of the violent act. It's incredibly, incredibly rare. The last thing that I wanted to talk about with the radicalization and with the ostracization, the majority of mass shooters have suffered from or are dealing with suicidal thoughts. So in their end game, they're not just dealing with this mass shooting, they're also planning on taking themselves out, either their own suicide or suicide by police officer. So those are the most common correlations and connections between mass shootings and behaviors, etc. And I'm here to tell you that mental illness is not one of them, nor has it ever been proven in any scientific study to be a causal factor in mass shootings. So when you hear people talk about mass shootings and they say, well, we really need to clean up our mental health system, I would say, you know what? We really do need to clean up our mental health system, but not because of mass shootings. We just need to clean it up because mental health is really super important. Um, But really, ultimately, when we look at this, these mass shooters, they're really, mental illness is not a causal factor with this. So it's just something to think about. Let me know your thoughts as we continue on this path. I'm going to talk more about experimentation and what cause and effect is and what correlations are. We're going to talk more about that as we move forward. But hey, I am Mr. E. This is Mystery's Mysteries. I want to thank Bear Wade with Unify Agency and all the work he does as a producer and director. So thank you so much. And as always, make sure that you follow our podcast on Spotify, Apple, anywhere that you can find podcasts, YouTube, etc. I am Mr. E. We'll see you all.